All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division where there has been some big developments. You may not notice them, but I'm here to share them with you. And the main point of it is that it looks like Errol Spence Jr.'s big mega fight may not be with Terrence Crawford. It looks like they're setting something up with Jaron Ennis and or Virgil Ortiz. If you look at what the WBC has just done and the WBA, let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division, where we're going to talk about the old adage, which goes in with the new, out with the old, or out with the old, in with the new, where the WBC and the WBA have made moves very recently that should let most people know that is looking they're looking closely. That Errol Spence Jr.'s big mega fight, or the next real big mega fight taking place in the welterweight division or around there, may not be Errol and Terrence Crawford. It actually may be Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz included in it. Now, before I get into the details of that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And if you are a longtime subscriber and supporter of the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean a lot to the channel. And thank you to anybody, whether subscriber or not, for tipping your hats in the super thanks. A great way to support channels like this. If you can't understand that, to support channels like this in putting out the content that you like. Now let's get into this, man, because this is going to be a little bit of a kind of a technical conversation, right? About the organization of boxing. Some people say the business of boxing, but I don't really like that phrase because business is business, right? But boxing does have its own peculiarities. It does have its own, kind of operating procedures. It has its own, governance. It has its own system of governance. And its system of governance is decentralized, right? Now, by decentralized, I mean that it is not in one place, where you have the NBA and you have, the commissioner of the NBA, you got the NBA offices, and you got a bunch of different owners. But the central governance of the NBA is with the NBA, the organization, the NBA, right? Same thing for American football with the NFL, or American baseball with the Major League Baseball. Same thing with the UFC with Dana White, and the fact that all of those fighters all work with the UFC. Little bit different with boxing, because boxing has multiple sanctioning bodies. And they have those sanctioning bodies often have many other belts underneath them. So you have the WBA, the WBC, the IBF, and the WBA. Those are the major ones. You also have the IBO, right? However, if you're looking at what's going on and looking at the major fights that are getting made and what's happening in the welterweight division, there has been some moves that have been taking place with the WBC and the WBA that I think should shed some light on what's going to be happening over the next year, or a year and a half, 2 years with that welterweight division. As of yesterday, the WBC ordered a fight to take place between Yordenis Ugas and Mario Barrios. So most people that I hear talking about that are talking about whether or not that's a good fight. If the fight is going to be for the WBC interim title, whether or not that really, is a good fight. Mario Barrios lost the fight before last against Keith Thurman. Also, Yordenis Ugas lost his last fight with a broken oral bone, about almost a year ago in April. It'll be a year ago next month that he broke his eye socket against Errol Spence Jr. and lost that fight. So a lot of people are focusing on whether that fight should be made. But what I'm saying is, look at it from this point of view. That is an interim title. The interim title is going to mean what? That means if the WBC title is vacated, The major title is vacated, and that's the one held by Errol Spence, who, according to what many people believe, will be fighting Keith Thurman at a weight of 154. If Errol Spence does not come back, decides, okay, I'm not going to fight at 147 pounds again, what happens? The winner of that fight, either Mario Barrios or Yordenis Ugas, I would lean towards Yordenis Ugas, but not discount Mario Barrios, becomes the WBC champion. What else happens at that same time? Jaron Ennis, who is the IBF champion, who is the IBF interim titleist, he has the same title that Yordenis Ugas and Mario Barrios are fighting for. He becomes the IBF champion. So now you have the IBF champion, now you have the WBC champion, and guess what else you have? You have the WBA champion, because the WBA has a regular title, and there's going to be a fight taking place between Stanionis, who owns the WBA regular title, Amanda Stanionis, and Virgil Ortiz. If Amanda Stanionis beats Virgil Ortiz and Errol Spence goes to 154, what does that make it? That means Stanionis becomes, because they have something called the one belt rule, where the WBA is now elevating fighters from the regular belt to the super title, or eliminating the super title and just having one title. That's just what happened to, that is exactly what happened with Erislandy Lara at middleweight when the WBA, when Gennady Golovkin vacated his WBA title and entered the WBC rankings. Lara they consolidated those titles, and now Lara is the only champion there. That would happen with the winner of Amanda Stanionis and Virgil Ortiz if Errol Spence Jr. goes to 154. So that, what do you have then? You now have fights between Jaron Ennis, Yordenis Ugas, and the winner of Virgil Ortiz Stanionis, which I suspect is going to be Virgil Ortiz, but could be Stanionis. Stanionis is a very good fighter. Don't want to dismiss him, right? So right there, that fight right there is a pivotal fight. And however, if it's Stanionis and Ugas and Ennis, without a doubt, those three people are going to be fighting. They're going to be fighting quick. They're going to consolidate all those three belts in one of those guys very, very quickly, because those are all PBC guys, and none of them are guys that are making a ton of money. They're all affordable fights to make, and all of those guys are trying to get it done, whether it is Mario Barrios versus Jaron Ennis to unify, or whether it is Stanionis versus Ugas to unify, or any combinations. That leaves what? That just leaves the WBO out there with Terrence Crawford. Now, with the WBO and Terrence Crawford having that, Terrence Crawford more than likely is not going to fight those guys, but maybe he will, but I doubt that he will. That, however, does set up a 3-belt unification fight there. And that's why I say that whoever wins that fight, that's the big fight taking place with Errol Spence Jr., especially if Errol Spence Jr. stays at 154 and he's not, if Jermell Charlo stays at 154. Because if Jermell Charlo stays at 154, even though I would love to see that fight, more than likely those two guys are not going to fight, right? Errol Spence Jr. more than likely is going to be taking money type of fights at 154 pounds, against whoever that is. It could be, and I don't know who that would be. The first one, obviously the first one is Keith Thurman, right? At 154. But it's going to be really, really interesting, man. Jake Donovan, who is the editor, I do believe he's the editor-in-chief for Boxing Scene, basically he cracked a joke and he said, look, man, look at what the WBC is doing. If the WBO is whatever Bob orders, what's the WBC here? Is it the WBC PBC merger? When you look at the interim titles and how all of these PBC fighters are having shots and controlling those WBC belts. I mean, I've always observed that how this specific weight classes, specific promoters control certain weight classes with certain sanctioning bodies. The lightweight, for example, Top Rank controls the entire division, right? The entire division and all the major belts in that division. So it's going to be very, very interesting, man. And especially with this Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis thing and how those guys made that fight take place, there's also a real good chance, I would hope, that Golden Boy may want to get into the mix because, you know, having successful mega fights and you have two promoters that work together, or two organizations can actually work together well to make those fights take place. Man, it may go back to the mid 2000s when 2012 through like 2017, where where Mayweather Promotions and Golden Boy were really, really running things in boxing. But anyway, interesting observations. I thought you guys should check that out or give that some consideration. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.